What happens when two people feel a magnetic pull towards one another? Is it love or is it a fantasy? When it comes to mutual limerence, the question isn't about whether or not it's real. The question is about what will you make of it? When people ask whether or not love is real, or if this limerence can be real love, what they're really perhaps asking is whether or not it's worth pursuing. And the truth is, no one has the answer to that. And no one knows whether something, even if it's limerence, if that's what you want to call it, is worth that risk. So I want to start off by kind of giving a little bit of a meta exercise because everyone has such a different conception of love based on your previous experiences, your childhood, and your relationships. But if you're watching this video, there is a part of you that believes that what you're experiencing is limerence. And there's something that we likely share, which is the language that what we are describing this emotional reality as is mutual limerence, not anything else like an emotional affair or a trauma bond. Perhaps those things have come to mind or have come up in your algorithm.
Before we go deeper, I realized I hadn't defined some key terms that I'm going to be using to frame this discussion. These terms can mean different things in different contexts, but this is how I'm going to be using it here. To start, Esther Perel defines infidelity as including three constitutive elements: secrecy, sexual alchemy, and emotional engagement. Secrecy is the first organizational principle of infidelity. A love affair always lives in the shadow of the primary relationship, in the hope that it will never be revealed. It is this mystery that amplifies the sexual charge. I couldn't help but notice the overlap. When looking at mutual limerence, it starts to resemble an emotional affair written in a different font, especially in its non sexual form. The emotional intensity, secrecy, and personal idealization, which often serves to justify boundary blurring behavior. By labeling it as mutual limerence, one may experience the same distortion of reality felt during an emotional affair, but now it feels appropriate.
But I digress. I'm getting a little philosophical here because in order to understand and navigate this experience of mutual limerence, you're going to need to understand not just what you're feeling, but what you're interpreting it as. When you say, I'm in love, you're not just reporting some pre existing truth, a fact. You're shaping your experience. You're giving a name and a form and a direction for your beliefs. When two people say, we're in love, what they're saying is not just a feeling, but using the same emotional grammar to construct a shared reality. This might not be the video that you guys were expecting when I asked for you guys to take a vote on a topic, but after working with several limerent clients, it came to my realization that there's not one size fits all. Everyone's situation is so complex, and instead of answering just a yes or a no, I'm going to kind of give you a framework for understanding your own experience and hopefully providing you with multiple perspectives that can allow you to move in the direction that you desire. And I'm going to do that by providing you guys with 4 different archetypes. You can kind of think of this as like different versions of you, and these different versions of you are how you interpret limerence. And maybe not all of them are conducive to your healing or of coming out of this kind of delusional state, but hopefully it allows you to see your reality as it is and interpret it more accurately. Before I get into it, and if you're new to my channel, my name's Adele, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist and a life coach. And I help people who are going through a limerent episode. If you like what we're talking about, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Have you experienced mutual limerence? What resonates with you in this discussion? So, this discussion was inspired by this essay called We Forge the Conditions of Love. I really like that title. I provided the link below, and this author explores something really fascinating, which is called maker's knowledge. It's a philosophy suggesting that we don't just discover truth or meaning, we create it through our conscious engagement with our experience. So I know that sounds kind of heavy, but what I love about this approach is that it allows for many truths to exist at once. It encourages us to ask and to reflect, what am I choosing to make of this? So when I apply maker's knowledge to mutual limerence, we can see that people don't just fall into obsession, they participate in the crafting of the meaning. If you're asking, can mutual limerence be a real relationship? Instead, you should be asking yourself, what are you calling it? What kind of story are you telling? What kind of world are you building through your words? Because language doesn't just describe reality, it shapes it. If you've gone so far as to disclose, and let's say they feel the same about you, then wouldn't that be love because it's reciprocated? Well, that's the thing about limerence, and that's the tricky thing that I see all the time, is that even when mutual limerence is reciprocated from both sides, the addiction wasn't for the reciprocation. The addiction is to the longing. So even when somebody's love is reciprocated, there is a very high chance that this person or both people can still become limerent outside of the relationship because what they're really addicted to isn't that person, but that experience of longing. And what they might really need to do, and before I get ahead of myself, is do that inner work. Okay, so let me get to the example. I'm going to share this fictional example of this woman named Jane. Let's say she's in a relationship, and so is her limerent object. They both feel that pull, but of course, there are barriers which intensifies their experience of longing towards one another. They have the same feeling and they have the same emotional tension when they're around each other, but the outcome of how the relationship plays out will depend on how they both interpret it. Jane, as the maker, if we were to apply this philosophy, gets to choose the meaning that she gives this experience. And that meaning changes everything. There are four archetypes of interpretation. And depending on where you are in the limerent episodes, then it's very possible for you to bounce between these four. If you're in the very initial stages of glimmer, then you might be the lover. The lover believes that this is true love. She believes she's found her soulmate, her twin flame. This view amplifies that feeling, and she starts to drift from her current partner. And with that limerent feeling, she starts to reinterpret the past as signs that she should be in a different relationship. She sees her partner in a negative light and sees the LO in a positive one. So that means she is more likely to risk blowing up her life for what feels like destiny. Then we have the archetype of the realist. The realist has the belief that maybe this is just new romantic energy. If you're not familiar, new romantic energy is that experience of being in a new relationship and living off of the dopamine and the high and the chemistry and the novelty, most of all. This kind of framing grounds the realist. Of course, she enjoys the thrill. the attention, but she doesn't spiritualize it. She may not act on it because she expects that this will likely fade. And then you have the addict. So, this addict is one who believes that limerence is a compulsion. Someone who would fall in this particular archetype would be somebody who's gone through this limerent episode before. They know that it's happening and they're so stuck in that pattern of becoming limerent over and over. So she would label this as an obsession. She might even use the language that we hear, limerent brain or limerent beast. Seeing it this way can often bring shame, but it can also bring clarity because she would more likely seek help. She would more likely try to create some distance and try some methods like going no contact, setting boundaries, going to therapy, and digging up the roots of this particular fantasy attachment. And then we have the archetype of the alchemist. This alchemist might believe something like, this is a projection, a pathway to my inner work. She sees this through maybe a Jungian lens, as almost like an invitation to one's psyche. Here, limerence becomes more of a portal of creativity and spiritual insight or self integration. As you can tell, if you watch my videos, I would say that the archetype that I attract in clients are the alchemists because my own belief is that limerence should not be taken literally. It should be taken as a symbol for transformation. But that's my own maker's philosophy. Anyway, I digress again. Here's the complicated thing. Both Jane and her LO are in relationships. So now this meaning that they assign, whatever meaning you assign to limerence, they have consequences, right? It's not just a belief because whatever we believe, there is a chance, a higher chance of acting out on those beliefs. Will they hold the experience internally or a symbolic transformation? Will they act on it? And if so, at what cost? These are questions you could be asking yourself because not every intense feeling requires us to act on it. Sometimes the most powerful transformations come from staying present with our experience without needing to possess the object of our desire. And of course, that's easier said than done. But whatever you are meditating on in your story of the limerent object and yourself is what grows. It's what unfolds. Whether or not it's true or real, you will find out because reality always catches up with the fantasy. In my closing thoughts, it's that limerence isn't just what you feel, it's what you name it. If you were to name it something like an emotional affair, then you would be less likely to pursue it. Perhaps you would feel the appropriate shame, and you would create the respective boundaries. Maybe you would try to align yourself with that integrity to move towards what is real. Because what is real causes us less suffering than the delusion and the fantasy of mutual limerence. But this is not advice. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you that you can choose the story that you tell yourself. You might not be able to choose how often the limerent object pops up in your brain, but you can certainly guide your awareness towards what it is that you desire to live in. Whatever lens you choose or whatever meaning you make. So I'm going to ask you, are you the lover, the realist, the addict, the alchemist? I want to add that whatever archetype you're in right now doesn't necessarily have to be the lens that you stay stuck in. You can choose to embody and meditate on any of these perspectives to help yourself. As always, I really appreciate what you guys have to share, and I love the conversations that everyone's having with one another to help us all come to terms with reality. If you're ready to re-author your story, again, I offer coaching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will catch you guys next time. Thank you guys for watching.